Hello, welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
And dude, Ryan, did you get that sketch cover I sent you of Pizza Boyz 14? I know I'm saying this on we're doing video, but you know what I mean, like...
Yes. I guess we could always pull it up if you wanted to. But yeah, I saw it, and I like how it's like stopping to do, like, because you're doing the whole, first off, your artwork's gotten really, I mean, it's always been, like, I think it's always worked. I always thought it looked good, but I could tell you put a lot of work into this one. But I also think it's funny that it's a big kung fu thing, but you got to stop and do, like, the Pauly Shore movie poster.
It really is true. Well, because it's like one of those ones I got inspired because there's that Booster Gold and Blue Beetle cover that I was like, it was one of those like random ass like single issues I found in a box. I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta have this. And it was just Booster Gold and Blue Beetle sitting out like half mast but bare chested, like on the beach with like this lady serving them drinks and whatnot. I feel bad. I need to almost read the issue. I want to see where this is going with this. This cover is just too good. But I was like, that's so cool. I want to kind of do the same thing with having Cisco and Kyle both kind of sitting out in the sun, you know, palm trees behind them, and then have the Pizza Girls truck back there, and they're eating pizza and drinking beer and all that good stuff.
You're like, this is the epic kung fu one. Well, it looks like just business as usual.
I know. Is this that one where it's like sort of my B and C stories that I've got to go, but it's like, yeah, I know. It's like Ninjutsu Sunrise. It's like, what's so ninja about this one?
I mean, they're on a beach, so I'm assuming there will be a sunrise at some point.
Yeah, at some point. Half of it makes sense. The other half I'm not too sure about.
Yeah. Well, it looks good. Looks good. And do you know how much, not to put you on the spot, I guess you could edit this out if you wanted to, but do you know when you'll be having that one finished? If you already work on the cover, I'm assuming the rest of it's pretty close by.
Yeah, I drew this cover I guess I drew it once I was done drawing all the other pages, but I have literally 5 more pages left to ink, and then ink this cover as well, too. So my total goal is to have it, because just things always take so long, longer than they always should for some reason, but if I could have it done by the end of August, you know, ready to go 100%, checked, cross the T's, dot the lowercase J's, I'll get all that going.
Keep on the toes with the eyes,
Yeah, all that stuff. Hopefully, that's kind of my main thing. I feel like I could probably get these pages hopefully taken care of in the next couple weeks, and then it's just you run over it just 100 times, and then I'll pass it out to you and a handful of other people, because I did that in the last issue, and I thought that was one of the best things, is to pass that issue out to like 15 plus people, have them all read it, because the main thing I noticed is when I got back is like, wow, nobody found the same error twice. That goes to show you that you can't have just a couple people read it. You should have a lot of people read it.
So was there like just kind of just pacing stuff, or was it more of just, because I'm probably was not bad with grammatical stuff, so I'm not sure how much I was able to add for that.
Yeah, well, it's just the main thing I'm always looking for more than anything else is mostly just like, grammatical, words, like is that clear, is that spelled right, like all that kind of stuff, because sometimes you read something and then someone else reads and goes like it's kind of a little bit clustered, and you're like, oh well, I can go back and fix that, I mean, generally it's not one of those ones like, hey, this page sucks. I'm like, well, good, I'm not drawing it over again. I'm not doing any of that.
Well, now I feel kind of like an asshole, because I feel like all my things are like, I feel like the pacing of these panels are a little awkward. I would just merge these together. And also, this person sounds a little old-fashioned, even though they're in their 20s. So now I feel kind of like a dick, because I didn't even give you the criticism you were looking for.
No, that's still all good, too. No. Like, I'm not saying I don't want that, but you know what I mean? And I did kind of organize a couple of those ideas that you had, and they did make more, they did add to it. So if I could fit something in there, like, I'm all down. That's why I sent you that one early on. So it wasn't like they're all inked already. Because once they're all inked, I'm like, if somebody says, hey, you should put some more panels in here, I'm like, well, not anymore.
Well, I just imagine, like, yes, I have a recommendation. What's that? Burn it. Start over again. Well, I was hoping if there's like a middle ground we could reach. No. Like, he says this every time. Like, I don't know if is he a fan of yours? No. Why do you go to him? Oh, shit. I don't know why I'm trying to please this guy.
Worst part, too, is that's what he tells me every time.
Yeah.
It's the only criticism he's ever offered.
I heard one of the weirdest criticisms on I was just watching it was more of like, I was looking for information on like a particular like filmmaker. So I was just pulling up like just I don't remember what the show is even called, but I pulled up like a just a steam like a StreamYard conversation podcast, kind of like what we have here, and just watch these two guys talk. Like, well, people who tune into the show know that I'm not exactly the biggest movie guy, and I can't. Most movies, I just can't. I can't keep hold my attention. I'm like, that sounds more of a user issue, dude. Like, it's just one of those things. Like, you're on a fucking movie podcast, and you're just like, most movies I don't like. You know, there seems to get those people who just like look at something, they're very analytical, where they're just kind of like, he's hard to impress, but if you listen to what he has to say, he actually makes some good points. And maybe I'm not going to agree with everything. Maybe he's a little nitpicky, but he does bring up a lot of good points. But then you get those people like, I don't, no, it's not, it's not Jaws. Well, there's a lot of things that aren't Jaws, yes, but this isn't Jaws. Like, it's just like, it's like the only. Well, what else do you like? I like Homeward Bound too. Oh, okay. Well, what else?
Yeah, it's like one of those ones. You know, I've seen that happen before. There was one time I was listening to, might have been the podcast Comics Kayfabe, but I could be wrong. Because sometimes nowadays a lot of times I'll just sort of, I'll like cherry pick so many things so that like a lot of times I'm not just continuously listening as much. But they had one, it's like, oh, there's the Aeon Flux guy. I'd like to hear what this guy has to say, like the main artist, animator guy, whatever, on that show. And overall, he was all pretty good, but keep in mind, he's on a comic book podcast, not an animation podcast, not something else like that. And he just kind of comes in at one point, he's like, I don't really get comics, you know what I mean? Like, that's such an old medium. Like, it's practically just should be dead and die out. I mean, we got animation and shit nowadays, and like, he was saying it like in a nicer way than I'm kind of saying it, but that's just almost like how it registered what he's going on about. Like, it's like, I don't get, like, they've been doing the same crap the whole time. Like, can't they offer something more? Like, can't they have like 3D pop-up pages or something extra in there? Or even talking about, he's like, we got digital now. Like, how about you have a button that you press that you can see like the sketch, the pre-illustration, the ink, the color, and all this stuff. Like, that's just all. It's like, I'm gonna be like, dude, it's already a whole lot of work as is. You're asking for a lot more work.
I'll say this: I always thought Aeon Flux was kind of up its own ass. That right there fucking proves it.
Yeah,
that
that's
right
one of those ones.
thought... Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it was just so funny because it's like, does he not realize he's on a comic book podcast? Like, you know what I mean? You have just like drowned yourself.
Well, it's like, I don't know. I mean, I barely remember Aeon Flux, but I remember it being kind of like, it was that weird, edgy adult cartoon when I was like a little kid, and then I later went back and saw random episodes that is like a teenager. I'm like, I don't get it, but I feel like it's me. And then I see it as an adult. It's like, no, this show is totally up its own ass. It's total. I don't know. It's just every so often, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's cool concepts in it, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, granted, someone likes it. I mean, hey, that guy got to do an Animatrix short, so good for him. And oh yeah, he was an animator on Rugrats or something before that. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those ones, like, it's like Aeon Flux, one of those things. I feel like, I think it's got cool, interesting animation because it's very experimental. Like, I mean, like, at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's just this very experimental one. And it really, the live action movie is not too bad with, what's her face in it?
Charlize Theron.
Yeah, that one. I'm not saying it's amazing, but, it's still kind of interesting and so on. But, yeah, no, I just thought... Sometimes it's one of those ones. It's like, dude, did you check this? Sometimes I think a lot of people they come on podcasts, and I don't think they really realize like where they are. Well, like my secretary said I need to be on this for an interview or whatever. Like I almost sometimes don't think some of those guys do any pre-research. And they just show up, and then it's like.
Well, I won't say the guy's name, but I mean, going back probably at least 3 or 4 years, we had someone come on our show who was using it strictly as a
marketing
thing
ploy.
to promote what marketing ploy to promote his thing, which is whatever. I mean, we actually, the thing is, I stopped and watched like the thing he was promoting, and it was like also one of the most. I'll be honest, he came on the show twice, and the first time I was like, maybe it was just an off day for me. Second time, like, nah, it was just a really weird, tense kind of like, let's talk about the thing, like. So one thing, we're trying to riff for a little bit. He got all pissed off. We were trying to riff and be funny. Like it'd be something like those things. Like he throw a statement out there, and then we talk about that, and then on to the next thing. Like almost kind of more segmented, like old radio talk. We're like, okay, all right, you know what I mean? So it's like this guy. We know for a fact this guy's never heard our show before. He was on probably.
Well, it's that one that, like, if someone asked me to be on their show, I at least try to do the due diligence. Like, say if I maybe it's just they just ask, and you're like, okay, well, let me at least listen to a couple episodes, like at least so I can know what the flow is and what the heck they talk about, and if they're funny or not. That's always like my kind of key thing. Because God forbid you want to be throwing one of those podcasts where everybody's just like serious talk, or I could just be like, I like their show, but sometimes I feel like I would only get invited on there just so I could be the laughing stock because of what I would choose. But there is the So I Married a Movie Geek podcast where they do like the movie showdown of like the years. And I think when it was 1995, like, of course, I picked Space Jam as my first choice. And I was really afraid someone else was going to pick it, but that just made everybody else look at me like I was a crazy person. And then I remember when I was in like 2004, I picked Troy, and everybody gave me shit for picking Troy and picking. There's something else I picked too. But yeah,
Troy. I just want to double check real quick. I mean, I'm not saying this is the metric of all metrics, but isn't that like is that a? Oh no, okay. It's
Troy, the Brad Pitt one, the Wolfgang.
No, yeah, Troy. Yeah, I was wondering. I always thought that was like a very well received movie, but it's 53, so I guess for a lot of people that's middle of the road. I'm not using Rotten Tomatoes as an overall metric, but I mean, I don't really take it that seriously. But I guess when you're like in high school and you see that movie, you're just like, Brad Pitt killing motherfuckers, and then and there's that part where we're all a little sad to see Orlando Bloom. I know we talked about this earlier in the year, but like Orlando Bloom being like, brother, save me, Eric Bana, please turn into the Hulk, please save me from this crazy Brad Pitt man, so there's that. But I think at that point we're all like, is teenagers like, this movie's fucking awesome. And then I think people get older, and then or not even old, I think older people though were like, this is whatever. I've seen this done better. And then, like you look back later, like, oh, it's not a beloved classic. Not everyone loves that movie. Okay.
Well, that's the thing I thought was weird too, because everybody I've ever met my entire life would have rated that movie 10 out of 10. Like there was nobody that I ever met that was I never heard that once before. But these fucks from around the world, I mean, nice guys and all, but they were just like, they put down Troy. It hurts me a little bit, I think also because I grew up like with like the Liliad and all that stuff, and like Homer's Odyssey and all those books and stuff. So that tale like double like adds for me, like, in a sense, and for them to be like, "Yeah, that movie's kind of stupid." Like, what, you didn't know? Like, no, Australia, I didn't know.
Well, it's also like, is it not an Australian podcast?
It was people around the world, so.
Oh, people around the world. Okay. Well, it was also like not the same movie. I could probably say I honestly like Troy, even though it doesn't have as much of a legacy as this next movie. Home Alone, at the time, that movie was fucking hated. Like, this stupid fucking family bullshit they're just trying to push on people to make some money. Now it's viewed as a beloved Christmas classic, but at the time, people are like, fuck this. And once again, I probably like this more than Home Alone and Troy, but like Blade Runner at the time, like, what the fuck is this? It's so slow and boring. He fucking narrates. This is fucking stupid. It's science fiction Harrison Ford. I thought we were all going to see some like Han Solo shit.
Yeah, no, it's funny how that is. Or it's like Last Action Hero. That's like kind of like one of the newer ones where like that movie was hated by old people for some reason in '93. But that movie's like that. Literally, when you see Arnold Schwarzenegger ranks, that movie's like in the top 3 like almost all the time nowadays. Like, so it's come a long ways. It's like when I see it, it's like, dude, that movie outbeats like sometimes like Terminators and Conan and all that stuff like that. I'm like, oh, the times are changing, and it's in the good way.
It is kind of funny because we're talking about movies that like in time, like you see it young, so you assume everyone likes. Like, I thought Hook was a classic for a long time.
Yeah, I did too.
I found out that everyone over the age of like 7 back when it came out hated it. So but at the exact same time though,
I think sometimes there's like a generation gap that happens in like certain decades. Like, I think that was what Hook was. Like, Hook was 290s for like a lot of older people in a weird way.
Well, I remember watching I don't remember if it was a miniseries or a documentary film, but I was watching a Spielberg documentary on HBO Max. I think maybe
was the one just called Spielberg?
I think that's all it's called, yeah. And some stuff they bypass, like some stuff they go into heavy detail on. You know, they go into heavy details on on Jaws. They go into heavy detail of the first Raiders of the Lost Ark, and they dabble on the other ones. They just talk about like Indiana Jones as a whole, you know, and then they talk about like they just kind of there's ones they pay a lot of attention to. They pay a lot of attention to Munich, which is one I thought they would just kind of glaze over, but they give Munich a lot of attention, and then there's some they don't even talk about, but in passing. And then like at the very end, like, you know, Stevens, he's one of those guys who's like, majority of times he makes something that works, and he's always experimental. And, you know, as they're saying this, they're showing clips of like, you know, like Saving Private Ryan, The Color Purple. Like, did he direct that or did he only produce that? I don't remember.
No, he directed that one.
Yeah, Color Purple. They're showing like Indiana Jones and Jaws. Sometimes it doesn't always work out, and, you know, they just say that real passingly. They just show Robin Williams flying, and they show like a scene from 1942 for a second, you know. So it's just like, it was like, and it just so not trying to make a joke, just a quick thing they show for a second passing. That's all the attention we're gonna pay to Hook.
Yeah, well, it's a weird thing too. Whenever they have stuff like that, it goes with both books, movies, documentaries, whatever. I always kind of, you know, I get it. Like you're gonna put more people in seats, sell more books if you talk about all the hits. But for me, it's like one of those ones. I feel like the hits are always the one where like the information is kind of just out there. Like if Jurassic Park, Jaws, Saving Private Ryan, they all got fat special features on all those ones and so on like that. Like what I always want to see is like I want to see the special features on all like the other movies. Like Always doesn't have any special features on that disc. I would like to hear more about that movie, you know. And that's probably the same thing of Hook. Hook doesn't have any special features on its one either, unless they've made another version at all. But, you know, I think it might be a slight, like one of those like made for TV, like get ready for Hook, you know, behind the scenes with the actors and cast in Steven Spielberg's latest masterpiece. You know, one of those ones where you would have caught it, like it would have came on like right after a show where like we got like 10 minutes to kill, fill up a space of the little extra preview.
Well, basically, there's that period when a movie was coming out, and to promote it, they would have the TV special where they showed some behind-the-scenes stuff. And like, guys, we got to kill the last 5 minutes of this. Throw in like a music video that correlates with the movie. You know, so we could sell a soundtrack. I remember I saw the Mario one for that. It was like a Mario Brothers Behind the Magic. You know, it was like right when the movie was coming out, and just seeing like now knowing the shit show that movie was filming, just seeing Bob Hoskins being like, yeah, it's really fun making this. John Leguizamo was like, yeah, you know, me and Bob, we just feel it, you know. It's just a lot of like brotherly energy. Like I really feel like he is my brother. And like you cut to like the girl who played Daisy. It's like
smoking a cigarette.
Just flicks ash off it and says nothing, cuts over to the next thing.
No, then it cuts to like Dennis Hopper. This is like kind of like some wacky like music, like, oh yeah, we're having a great time. Oh, look at me, I'm a monster. I'm Koopa. Where's the drugs at?
He just like,
Dennis, you're sober now. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Really did forget about that.
Fuck. I wish I wasn't. Sorry, I got to turn the fan back on. It harder than I thought it would be. Now I'm just imagining like Hook, like them like behind the scenes, like okay, between shots, like, you know, everyone's gathering around like Dustin Hoffman. He's like, okay, they're like doing blow like off his hook or whatever right there, you know. So, like it's a fingernail, like in a nightclub, like a disco back in like '79.
But you know, that's what it is though. It's like I want to see the special features on all those kind of movies and so on like that. Or it's like when actors kind of have like their biographies and autobiographies. Like I wish they would spend more time on like the random ass movies. Like I think those are almost more interesting to hear about. You know, even if maybe they don't like them, but like sometimes it's like they do think, well, the movie didn't make any money, so you don't need to hear about it. And it's like, no, I want to hear more about that one. Then the movie that made a lot of money, I hear a lot about that already. You can stop talking about that one almost.
I'm going to sound probably like a little like less than, I'm not that, I think I ever sound all that intellectual, but I'm probably going to sound a little less intellectual here. I feel like, you know, sometimes there's like internet drama on this or that, and a lot of like, I don't fucking care. But when it's like actors or directors, you're kind of aware of like, oh dude, did you get the time like Charleston Heston like chucked a fucking spear at Sam Peckinpah? Like, wait, what? Rewind, what? You know, so with the second it's like somebody you're kind of invested in, you're just kind of like, no, let's hear about this. Let's hear. So the second so you hear about like, so like Kevin Smith, I mean, granted, it probably didn't help his career, but when you hear him like on the Dogma special features being kind of like, yeah, I forgot the actress's name, but she was the main character in Dogma, and she was also played Elle in Men in Black. He's like, yeah, she's really good, but she just wasn't the funnest person to work with. She would be those days where she wasn't even talking to me, like she was using her assistant to talk to me. And yeah, part of me wishes I actually got like Janine Garofalo to play her character, because she was just as fun, but like she was fun, but she was also easier to work with, so it's like one of those things like you probably shouldn't say that, but at the same time you're kind of like, go on, yeah, what else? Alan Rickman was cool. Oh, that's good to hear. I'm glad Alan Rickman was cool.
I want to hear that Alan Rickman's cool. Yeah. Well, there's always those things like, because I've just been reading through, or technically listening to on Audible, but like just a bunch of these like, biographies on different people and autobiographies and whatnot. Like, and there's one I went through recently that put me into a big Steve McQueen mode, because I found the book where it was written by the same dude who did the Clint Eastwood autobiography that I think literally read, or I talked about on the podcast, like on probably like episode single digits, like that long ago almost. But I was like, when I saw it, it's like, oh, it's that dude. And it was actually kind of cool because the dude actually reads his own books, which I feel always makes it better. Like some people don't think that's always a good thing, but it feels like it's more real, because it just feels like here's your old uncle telling you all about Steve McQueen's life and so on like that. You're just kind of going through it. And, I mean, overall, I will say it's like, I always love Steve McQueen and so on. He doesn't seem like he's kind of an ass, though. It just seems like he's kind of a pain to work with, and he makes his own decisions. And, it's the Steve show. Don't you dare mess with the Steve show. But at the same time, he's going to have a cool movie at the end of the day. And
I feel like it's kind of a trade-off. Like, it's one of those things, like, it's so far separated. Like there's like a line for me, I think. Like, for instance, like, Steve McQueen, like, whether it's movies I don't think he ever wrote anything, but movies he picks and chooses to act in, like I generally agree with his decisions. And like I can't think of a Steve McQueen movie that I've seen. And she's made a lot of movies, and I can't think of. I've only seen probably, in all honesty, I've probably only seen like 15 Steve McQueen movies. So, but at the same time, though, actually the only one I did not like Towering Inferno. I did not like Towering Inferno. Fuck that.
Well, he's only like just a partial character in that with like an ensemble.
He is, but they advertise his name. They advertise his name.
They still do. Him and
OJ.
Oh yeah, OJ's
Paul Newman.
Paul Newman, and there's all sorts of people in there. I'm surprised. You know what? I'm actually really surprised. I'm surprised that movie has never been remade. That just feels like one of those ones that would have been remade like in like the last 20 years.
You think it would have? They did a remake. I guess it was also.
They did the Poseidon Adventure. They made that one.
Yeah, which is another disaster movie at the time where I feel like well, let me just finish this point real quick.
Yeah. Sorry, I got distracted there.
No, it's all good. It's all good. But it's one of those things like his work is so separated that I'm like, he's probably a dick, but I guess a lot of this, like Marlon Brando's a fucking dick. Like for me, it's like a director or a writer, like I guess, because I'm not trying to be on some moral high ground, but like Kubrick was a dick. Marlon Brando was a dick. Tarantino might be a dick. I don't know. But it's one of those things where, I don't know. Do I support people acting like assholes on set? No, I don't. I don't think they should. I think there's ways to get there without being the dick, but at the exact same time, we already have the movie. If the movie's here, the movie's here. And a lot of that shit, I feel like a lot of that stuff is things are being pushed back on now, because now you're hearing about like writers and directors like taking shit like, you know what, man? Yeah, you're good, but you're not that fucking good, all right? So back the fuck up. You're kind of hearing about people like David O. Russell being put in their fucking place. Like, yeah, you're a good director, but you know what, man? You're not fucking Spielberg. You're not Mark Scorsese, and Scorsese's cool. All right.
Yeah, exactly. Don't make us bring over George Clooney here to punch you in the face.
Exactly.
Believe me, he wants to still.
He has not forgotten. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's like one of those ones. I mean, like Sizel says, it's not excusable, I guess, to be the dick, but sometimes some directors still, it's like, oh, it's a good fucking movie. I'm not going to deny that. You know what I mean? Same thing with like actors and so on. Steve McQueen just more seems like, not like such like a terrible one, but like
self-centered,
just
focused.
enough. Well, yeah, it's like, I mean, he technically does grow up. He's pretty much like, if he was not in movies, he would be like a meth head biker. Like that's about like, it was one or the other. He wasn't gonna, he wasn't gonna live a normal life. He just had way too broken of like a family, and he was just like an outlaw practically that just happened to make it into like movies. So that does sort of add into like the character and so on like that of it, but yeah, there was one thing that was I thought was hilarious. It's like when Steve McQueen died or whatever, like in his will, he specifically said, "Do not give my first two wives any money," like for Gene Simmons and Ally McGraw. I just love how specific it was. He's dead. He's like, specifically, God forbid they get any of my money.
Nothing to them. I don't care if I smacked her unrehearsed and get away.
Yeah, exactly. That was the time. But you want real acting? I'm giving you method acting. That's the other thing that's kind of weird is that like Steve McQueen was also like really hardcore into like that method acting, just like Marlon Brando and everything like that. Which Steve McQueen does not come across as that method kind of actor. He comes across more like a Clint Eastwood. Like, I show up, I do my thing. This is who I am. That's what you paid for. Where like the method acting seems like more like when you're trying to be like, in a sense, not yourself.
Well, it's also something about like, I don't remember who it was. I think it may have been John Cleese. Maybe it was somebody else. I don't remember who, but it was an older actor who worked with Daniel Day-Lewis, and he knew Daniel Day-Lewis was really good. And Daniel Day-Lewis is known for being a method actor and acting like whatever he's playing as for like a month or months on end until they're done shooting. And then he had a chance to work with one of his idols, and he says like I think there was like a stage production of some kind, and like Daniel Day-Lewis like, oh, it's him. And the guy's like, hey, how's it going? Looks in at the word, like looks in the script, like num British. Yeah, I got it. Okay, cool. Just goes out there and he's like, he's not method acting. Like, no, he's like, he just tried a few voices in the mirror. Like, I got it. Turns the script out. It just goes out there. And Daniel Day-Lewis is like, I was fucking like walking around, like using my foot to pick shit up for like the last 3 fucking months. Are you shitting me? I was talking out of one side of my face for the last fucking goddamn it.
It's not saying that there's not good points from Stanislavski's like method acting kind of stuff. I think there's good points there, but I think if you fall too deep into that, it becomes a crutch. And I feel that it makes you not nearly as good of an actor because it comes to that old fashioned, I can't remember what director said it, but like when the actor's like, he's like, okay, the director's all like, I want you to cross the street. And the actor looks at him and goes like, well, what's my motivation? And the director goes, it's because I fucking told you to cross the street. That's what you're doing. That's the motivation.
Not get hit by a fucking car there.
And I think that's kind of what it is. It's like one of those ones, I think like a good actor should be able to just to take the thing, go, okay, this is what it is. Yeah, okay, let me kind of figure out a character to go along with it and jump on in. And you don't need to have what's your motivation, what's your feelings about this, how does this remind you of your childhood? Like if you have to put a little too much stuff in there, and I'm not saying there's not good points in there, some of that stuff's fine, some of that stuff's like if you're gonna actually like drink a soda in the scene, you drink an actual soda just so you can get the feel of it. Or if you had like a cheeseburger and you were going to talk during it, you take a bite and you sort of talk with that burger in your mouth that gives you maybe a certain characteristic. Okay, I get that kind of stuff. But I do think that sometimes like if you can't do a scene because you don't have the right motivation or something like that, that almost to me just sounds like you're not that very good of an actor then. That seems like what you have to tell somebody who like never has acted before is you got to find that deep thing in there to get them like to do what you want, There's that movie. Is it Man on the Moon? Is it the Jim Carrey one where he's playing Andy Kaufman? I think so.
Yeah. He was method acting and he's being a total asshole to everybody. Like it was for the best, but he was trying to like intentionally irritate people like the way Andy Kaufman would, or doing like that character that I forget the name of the character, but that character that intentionally bombs. He would go on before Kaufman to like set Kaufman up, and part of the joke was how badly he bombs. And someone else actually took that role over later down the line. But anyway, yeah. So Jim Carrey was doing that while they're filming that movie, and there's like a documentary and people just getting really like, Jim, we appreciate it, but we're really just trying to get this shit fucking done. All right, you know. And this is like, I'm not Jim, I'm Andy, you know, just like really just like, so I'm like, I cannot help but imagine, like, I understand it'd be very difficult for everyone working there, but like, what if he brought that to Eggman? What if he is the guy with the big like chest with a sonic shelf right here? What if he brought that to fucking Eggman? Don't get me wrong, I really like his interpretation.
Like,
he's
got to go out and enslave some animals first, turn them into robots.
Well, not even that, just being kind of like, just being a prick, just walking around, just like just the way he plays them in that movie. Like, I'm not saying he does a bad job, just that degree of kind of like just skipping down through the lot. Like, somebody just come by, like an intern with a copy, oops, just flips it over, like, he just like slides in dancing through. Yeah, or even the guy who's playing Agent Stone has the boombox behind him playing the boss.
Yeah, exactly.
Just Sonic 2, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those ones, but yeah, no, it's weird because it's like one of those things. At the end of the day, you know, like you know, I know there's like, I feel like you generally have, for the most part, two simple ways to kind of sum up, like, you know, acting. You either have the actors that you hire just to be the actor, which I always feel like the definitive one's Clint Eastwood. You could also probably say John Wayne's like that too, like
Brad Pitt.
Those kind of Brad Pitt. Like, you know, you mostly just get them to do them in a sense. Like, that's why you got them, and the character sort of forms around it. And then I feel like you got guys like Gary Oldman who you get to play completely random ass things that you almost sometimes takes you a moment to realize that is who it is. You know, I feel Johnny Depp even fits into that. You know, some of those other kind of guys that, like, you know, they literally transform into different characters. So that's why I felt like it's so strange that Steve McQueen, who he always just feels like he's Steve McQueen in the movie. You know what I mean? Every movie I've ever seen, it just feels like it's more Steve McQueen somehow, some way in it. You know, it's not like you get those random character acting ones.
Well, the thing about Clint Eastwood is most of the characters he plays, he's kind of changed over the years, like some of the roles he plays, but because now he's the old man. But before, it used to just be kind of like he's just like a very calm bomb. He's sitting there. He's like, I'm going to be calm, and we're all going to be calm until we're not calm. You know, he kind of played it like that for a while, and then he would have a couple of the character roles where he did something a little different, and then after a while, you know, like around the 90s and upwards, he just became like, it's like his main line for every movie he's in. And some of those movies are fantastic, some of them are The Mule, you know, but
and The Mule's not bad, you know, it's still enjoyable.
It was all right. I guess it was one of those things that it wasn't like horrible, it wasn't bad. I just felt kind of like, sometimes there's that thing like, he's an old man, I get it. But another part of me is sometimes when like older directors come in, they try to do all right, you young whippersnappers, it's time for you to figure out how to change a fucking tire. Like, I know how to change a fucking tire.
Well, obviously you fucking don't. Look at your family here. Your own daughter's looking at you like you're a fucking failure.
I don't, just that whole part right there, I'm like, bullshit. It's like the whole thing of like, what's wrong with these goddamn millennials? They know how to work a phone, but they don't know how to change a tire? I'm like, oh, shut the fuck up, old man. I can change a fucking tire. I can change my fucking oil. Jesus Christ. Like, it's one of those things, like, because I feel like he has that, and not just that movie, but it's in a couple of his like movies set in modern day. Like, the young person is so fucking hapless. Like, oh my God. Good thing someone from the sleeper generation is here to tell me how to fucking do this. You know, it's kind of like, so it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, don't get me wrong. I love a lot of his movies, and, you know, the Fistful of Dollar trilogies is one of my favorite film trilogies of all time. I'm a big fan of his work, but sometimes just becomes like, all right, Grandpa, all right, I fucking get it. And I know early points of this podcast, we talk about Clint Eastwood, like, he can do no wrong. And then one day he's all like, I'm supporting Mitt Romney, and I'm here talking to Invisible Obama in a chair. I'm like, oh, this is where it happens. Okay.
I guess that's that thing, though. It's like, you know, Steve McQueen probably would have been in that same boat if he didn't get asbestos from World War II. But
oh, he got asbestos?
Yeah, dude, that's what he died from. Like,
Shit.
and I remember, like, I that one I knew before the book because I remember there was that thing is, like, asbestos is that thing that I feel like as any kid growing up in the 90s, like, that was like what there was like an ad in between everything that was like, if you have mesothelioma and asbestos, poisoning, call this number to get legal help. Like, that was like, I remember it, everywhere that was. And then when I finally you don't go, well, I don't know anybody has that. And then it's like, Steve McQueen had that. Well, I don't know Steve McQueen, but I mean, I feel like we could like, that's what he died from. Like, yeah, when he was dismantling, like ships and from World War II for 6 months, he had to pull out all the asbestos like insulation in there, and he practically died from that right then. But then survived, and slowly it got him in 1980.
The guy that like was ride motorcycles for breakfast, that's what fucking got him. Like, yeah.
Yeah, asbestos cancer in the lungs got him.
Well, well, I know that something else about Steve McQueen. He apparently, maybe this isn't me. I didn't read the book like you did, but I overheard. He apparently when he knew he was going to die, he actually called Yul Brynner and said, "Hey, I'm sorry for being a dick to you on Magnificent Seven, because you at the end of the day got me that job, and that job made me, and I was a dick to you the whole time while filming. So I just want to say sorry about that, and I appreciate it."
Yeah, that wasn't the book, but I could see him doing that kind of towards the end. Maybe sort of.
Well, it's also, oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was just saying, because like what he did towards the end is he sort of like moved away to like a somewhat smaller town just above Los Angeles area, and he just kind of like lived out like a country life up there, sort of doing movies once in a blue moon, Mm-hmm. And I think he did kind of like calm down of like telling people kind of that he was the best and he could do anything, and he just did, because I was like, Steve McQueen just did whatever he felt like no one was going to tell Steve no.
Well, at the same time, I feel like when you come from someone like and it's two very different people, but I think when you come from and I know probably more about Steve McQueen than I do the other guy, but when you're like an Axl Rose or Steve McQueen, I feel like, and you kind of like come from did Axl Rose come from like a fucked up family in like middle of nowhere? Or
well, he's from Illinois. I don't think he's from a messed up family, but Axl Rose was a very the thing about like Axl Rose is he was kind of like, in a sense, like a very like street kid, because they always said Axl Rose was a really good fighter. Axl Rose was a kind of like a survivor type person, so on like that. And then since he didn't really do drugs, I'm pretty sure that's why he was always really pissed off at other people, because most of the people that don't do drugs get really angry when people around them are all doing drugs.
So when you're someone that kind of like came from I don't know the details of Axl Rose, but when you're someone who kind of like got to where you are, you came from like a rough upbringing or rough background of some kind, and then you get to where you are, and it's on your own tenacity and your own like wits that kind of got you to where you're at. So like a Steve McQueen or like that, then the second someone doesn't want to do things your way, like, hey, fuck you. I worked my ass off to get to where I'm at, and my gut hasn't served me wrong, hasn't like steered me wrong yet. And they all say that, but then they make Chinese democracy. But it's one of those things where it's like,
not that Chinese democracy is bad, it's just not 12 years in the making good. Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. Do you think anyone's coming out like do you think when they all got back together and they were like playing on stage, he was like, Chinese democracy?
There probably was one guy.
There got to be one person. There's going to be the one person like wearing a Buckethead shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, the KFC hat.
Yeah. But like, it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like, not that how do I put it? Not that every instinct of those people is wrong, but I feel like at some point, not everyone like that, but they at some point just kind of only listen to their own advice and kind of get closed off. So clearly I know everything because it's me who got myself here. And then at some point they end up shutting people out and get kind of wrapped up in their own head. Kind of like the way you were talking about Steve McQueen was a dick and hard to work with, how Axl Rose was a dick, hard to work with. I know it's two very different people.
But I think it's also true. It's kind of like, because, I don't think, Steve McQueen didn't go through, he probably dropped out of school, I think, early on. So you like small stuff like that kind of does start to add up, you just little things where you kind of have less and less character building. If you're kind of living off the street in a sense, you're going to have a different way of, raised up than someone who's been like, oh, I raised up with manners and all kinds of things and always say thank you and all that stuff. You're like, yeah, thank you as a gunshot to the face.
They beat the statistic basically, and
yeah, Zach, as I said, because it's one of those ones. I remember that Steve McQueen one that I thought about. I'm like, man, if he was not an actor, he would probably be one of those guys like riding around a motorcycle, being like some like Hellraiser in a sense.
Like probably OD in like a bathroom, like in a bar off the side of like out of Joshua Tree or something like that at a biker bar.
Yeah, well, because Steve McQueen really did like his drugs too. That's the thing is he's
I didn't
also
know that, but that doesn't surprise me.
He's like that. It's like that weird kind of because it's like I thought he was in World War II, but he was technically just right past. He was in the military like in 47 and 48 or whatever. Like just that like right, World War II's done. Come in, guys, and help clean up. That was pretty much what he was like one of those ones.
Oh,
but it's like that kind of weird one where you like when you think of like that like when the World War II guys like are pretty much hanging out with the hippies. It's like that seems like such an interesting combo, like greatest generation mixed in with baby boomer generation in a sense of like these two guys. And yeah, Steve McQueen loved his LSD, his acid, his peyote, all that stuff. Smoking pot all the time. Like he's the one that even turned Bruce Lee on to smoking weed.
Really?
Yeah, apparently that was like, well, because it's weird because I remember I read a Bruce Lee book or listened to a Bruce Lee biography and the Steve McQueen one, and it was like there were so many parallels that kind of happened between them because their lives interconnect so much.
Well, I'm surprised he could talk Bruce Lee into it because Bruce Lee's like, no, my body's a temple. Maybe he had it probably took more than one conversation. He was probably at it for like a couple of months. He'd probably keep on inviting Bruce Lee over, and then like everyone's hanging out like. So what are we doing, guys? Like, oh, we're just, just sitting there looking at him, like hard eye contact. We're rolling a joint. Like Bruce Lee's like, I can kick your ass right now. Like, you could, or you can smoke this.
Yeah, because I think that was because it was like, yeah, Steve McQueen was the one, and then Linda was like, oh gosh, after Steve, then Bruce was always lighting up his joints after like his workouts and so on, and that damn Steve McQueen.
I'm just imagining like if it went on longer, just like Bruce Lee just like working out like crazy, just like doing that, like punching a hole through like a wall, wide eye, doing that shit he does like in like Way of the Dragon, where he like just adjusts his pecs on top of his shoulders and drops them back down, and then he's like, all right, Daddy's got to get his smoke on, and then goes and puts on like, oh, cool, Scooby-Doo song. He's like rolling.
Well, they did say that like the whole thing was because of how intense he was. Like that was why he kind of got, because he wouldn't do any other drugs, but like because he kind of liked the weed, he wouldn't drink because he had they had what they call like that Asian thing that like 25% people have that like if they drink some form of like alcohol, they just like severely start throwing up and can't handle it. But the weed he could handle from Steve, and he's like, it's like after like his intense day, like it calmed him down, and that's what he liked about it. And then he could sit there and talk philosophy with people.
Maybe talking shit to like stuntmen and getting home and just being like, what? Maybe that's the point where he stopped like coming in like turtleneck sweaters and like talking shit. Maybe that's the point. He's just like, you know what, man? We're all part of the same world. We're all part of the same thing. That's what Jeet Kune Do is all about. Going with the flow. We know, Bruce. We know. This happens every time you get high.
Well, it's like that was like the thing too. Is like when Bruce Lee died, like the Chinese were really trying because he apparently lit up a joint like only a couple hours beforehand. The life insurance, because Bruce Lee for some reason like literally like a year before he died, he took out like a $2.5 or I think it was like a $3.5 million life insurance policy. like literally like less than a year he dies, and that life insurance policy is like, figure out any fucking way that we don't have to pay that thing out.
I just like to imagine.
And they're like, oh, when he was at that one like other actress's house, it was not Linda. He's like, and that's where they get all those weird rumors where it's like, oh, Bruce was up on drugs and he had a raging hard on. Like his coffin and all that stuff,
just laying like. The thing is, here's the thing: he wasn't like laying down on his like back. He was laying face down, but he was still sticking up just to a raging fucking boner. Yeah,
he was doing a form of one arm push-ups.
No, I just like the idea of like him just going in and just being like, because at that point, like, Bruce, you brought so much like appreciation and love to China. He's like meeting like the Chinese like president or prime minister or something, and he says like, thank you so much. Like, oh, thank you. Like, are you trying to smoke a cigarette right now? No, it's not a cigarette. the fucking joint. Like,
It's like a weed,
man. There's fucking. It's like you can't fucking do that. That's the fucking emperor. Like, yeah, emperor want to get high? I mean, come on, Bruce Lee. What the fuck's your secret, sir? Are they gonna stop me? What?
Yeah, exactly. Let's be honest.
Come on, you seen Big Boss? I know. Yeah. Don't get mad. Enter the Dragon's coming out soon. It's gonna be pretty fucking awesome. All right, so yeah.
Well, because that was one of the big deals, I think, because in Hong Kong, like, I think weed was extremely illegal at that point in time. So they're like, because that was the thing, Raymond Chow, when he comes in there, he's like, the fuck did you do to my star? Like, put some clothes on him, damn it. Like, get the shit out of here. Like, we're gonna set this thing up so that, like, people think he died just a normal death. You know what I mean? Like, drag him back to Linda's.
God, if this did come out, like, say like, if there's some kind of like weird like temporal change to where Bruce Lee did come out and have a career, but we just dropped the career like a few decades back, and this happened around the time of Reefer Madness. Did you kids know that Reefer Madness is what killed that famous martial artist Bruce Lee? Did you know that? It was the Reefer. Like, I mean, that thing they'd be saying for years. Like, Reefer is what killed Bruce Lee.
Well, that's what they literally tried to pass that off for a while, and then they literally had to bring, because the Chinese doctors wouldn't. That was like one of those one times where they would, because they were still opposed to that in China, that they had to bring some American doctors to be like, yo, nobody has ever overdosed from marijuana. Like, he did not die from that, you know. And what the book kind of cleared up is because, you know, you always think you hear all those 1,000 rumors and the aspirin and all that stuff, but they said that what he really died from was heat stroke, which at that time period, nobody really knew anything about heat stroke. But apparently he, about like 3 months beforehand, when he was shooting Enter the Dragon, he got a severe case of heat stroke. And he had to go to the hospital, and, you know, they got him taken care of that time. But once you have heat stroke once, it can happen pretty much again, too. And he wasn't sleeping well. He was overworking, you know, it was like 110 degrees out, you know. Where the heck were they at? They weren't in Vietnam. They're in Philippines. Where was it?
Because when they were filming, were they filming Game of Death, or was that kind of like when Game of Death was still kind of a concept they were working on?
Well, it's still, because that Game of Death footage, the weird thing about that is like the Bruce Lee
before Enter the Dragon. Right?
Yeah, it's before, and then he was working on it again because he was going to have 007 in there. George Lazenby was going to be in it and all that stuff, and they were working on getting those scenes shot. But it was kind of like during a lot of the other stuff, he literally heat stroked himself out is what happened, and that's what got him. Is it, you know, that made his brain swell up and all that stuff there, because it was like they said like in '76 when they started taking heat stroke serious, because I think a Minnesota Vikings because a guy died on the football field, and they're like, oh shit, this is getting like people we just used to think they just died from, I don't know, something. It's 120 degrees out. Well, yeah. What else would he have died from? Here, take a salt tab.
I just like the idea of just like going back to that for a second of like Bruce Lee, like their Chinese doctors be like, must be that damn American Kush. And all of a sudden, an American doctor walks in like, nah, it wasn't weed. You sure? Like, yeah, definitely wasn't weed.
Chinese guy's like, can we trust this guy? He seems pretty hot.
I hooked him up with his dealer. He don't trust me. It's good shit. It wasn't that.
Just Steve McQueen comes in a doctor suit.
Just
wait a second. Is that Steve McQueen dressed as a doctor? It's kind of funny because like Bruce was also trying to plan this movie with Steve, where he was like really trying to put the script together where like Bruce was the hero or whatever, but or not Bruce. Steve was the hero, but Bruce played the 5 villains, so he played like he was like Eddie Murphying it. Where he's gonna play all these other characters in there.
Bruce is gonna play. Sorry, who's gonna be the Eddie Murphy?
Bruce was going to be Eddie Murphy in a sense, because he was going to play the 5. There was going to be like 5 villains that Steve McQueen had to fight through, and Bruce was going to dress up and play every single one of them.
So it's going to be a different version of Game of Death, basically reverse Game of Death.
Yeah, kind of like that, except for Steve McQueen was going to be in there. And then at some point, like Steve McQueen just said, like, "Yo, I'm not carrying you on my coattails." Like he's like, I like you, Bruce, but quit pitching me your ideas. They try to get you, like he was thinking that he was trying to get more fame, and that was almost like where like their relationship sort of broke. And then Bruce is like, "Fuck that guy! I will be the best actor ever. Steve McQueen's gonna be number 3."
Well, he said something kind of like, I guess something similar was like that with him and Roman Polanski, I think, because he was because he was cool with Sharon Tate, and he would go hang out with their parties, and then apparently he would often like pitch the Roman Polanski stuff, and people were like, yeah, it's kind of embarrassing because he's really good, but it's also, at the same time, it's just all this stuff that people do in Hollywood. It sucks when you see someone so good, and I mean, I don't know, this is just shit you read, and it's coming third hand from supposed events from like 50 years ago. So who knows? But yeah, I mean, I could see that. Regardless, though, I mean, it is all who you know, and being like a Chinese guy in Hollywood at that time, that had to be hard.
Oh yeah, I think that's the thing. He just wanted to be in stuff so bad. But the thing is like pretty much if you kind of blew Bruce Lee off once, it's almost he did that thing like fuck that guy. Like he pretty much was done with you if you kind of did that to him once, and then he just moved on to different places.
You ever do the thing where you think about like, what if this movie got made back in like let's like take a modern movie, like what if this movie got made back like in the 70s or back in the 60s? Do you ever play that kind of game in your head a little bit?
Oh, it's always kind of kind of like fake think about a film, like especially when they like even like when they talk about things. I mean, that's almost like the Lord of the Rings movie made by what's his name, Kubrick with the Beatles in it, and you're like, that just sounds fucking interesting. Yeah, the Beatles playing the Hobbits, and I don't know who else would be in like for the rest of the supporting cast, but obviously that would be a 60s picture.
Like you think about like what would have I mean, I guess he would have been dead by then, but let's say Bruce Lee lived to like lived to the 80s. They made it through the 80s, or even like late 70s. Rush Hour in the late 70s, like Richard Pryor and Bruce Lee.
Yes, that'd be so awesome.
Yeah, like I can't imagine. Like I just kind of imagine what that would be, and he would not be as jokey as Jackie Chan, be a little bit more stern, but still, I think that would be kind of funny in its own way too.
Yeah, no, I think that would actually add a pretty good balance because you'd have the straight man, and then you'd have the funny guy,
Mm-hmm.
Just having like something like that would be just those interesting combos that at one point you could have had somehow, some way if everything worked out differently.
Like what would I mean, I know this is kind of our go-to for when we think 70s directors, but I mean, what would like a Sam Peckinpah like modern day Western be with Bruce Lee?
Yeah, I think
bring me
that's
the head of Alfredo Garcia style film, but with Bruce Lee.
I think that's always the biggest bummer whenever you kind of think about like Bruce Lee. It's just like it's like he is right when he passes away, he's like hitting like that, like boom, he's gonna be this huge guy, and like he would almost have just like 10 more large movies just right after that, like throughout the 70s, that would have just been ginormous hits. Now, granted, I still think that sometimes Enter the Dragon became a bigger movie because he passed away. Because I hate to always say that, but a lot of times that makes movies bigger. It's just like The Dark Knight, like because like Heath Ledger passed away. I feel like that makes Dark Knight bigger. I'm not saying the movie went big by itself, but that does it brings in like this extra like 20% of people that might not have gone out and seen it because of that. But even still, Enter the Dragon still would have been huge. I think it still would have passed on. And then like his movies were like one of those ones, because Enter the Dragon's almost kind of like let's give like the Americans kind of a taste of Hong Kong cinema. It's not even like full Hong Kong cinema yet. It's like it's giving them like a partial dose. So he almost doesn't get to give them that full treatment yet.
Enter the Dragon, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like it. I think that was, but at the same time, it's probably my second. I guess if you count the game version of Game of Death we got, that's probably my second least favorite.
I almost don't count that because it's more like a short film. It's 20 minutes of Bruce Lee. Let's be honest.
I'm talking about the Frankenstein cut where it's like you got like the guy coming in with a cane, like, now listen to me, Jimmy, and like puts like he's like Bruce Lee is looking in the mirror, and they just have a cutout of his face. You kind of see like that kind of shit. And anytime Bruce Lee is like running down somewhere, he's just like, he happens to be wearing glasses and a wig, and then there's a couple of like reaction shots where like he's like in a locker room or something. He turns around like, wait, something about that didn't look right. You rewind it. It just like they use a shot from like Fist of Fury where he's turned around, like there's a street lamp behind him. He's in a fucking locker room.
Yeah, no. Well, that one, yeah, as I said, that, like when I just think of the core four Bruce Lee movies,
Yeah.
and, you know, not his child movies either, which I'm still always kind of interested to watch a couple of those because some of those ones sound like they might be, you know, something interesting. Like one of them kind of seems like it's like Rebel Without a Cause, but like the Hong Kong version. But the core four, it's like I probably would say I like probably Big Boss, Chinese Connection. It's almost kind of between Return and Enter the Dragon. I'm always kind of a little bit. I probably would say maybe Enter, but I do actually kind of like Return quite a bit. Like they're very close.
I'm probably like Big Boss. Even despite that bleak ass ending and just being kind of like, go fuck your cousin. Like, okay. Like aside from that, Big Boss. Well, I don't know. I might be going. Not to be the contrarian here, I might be going Way of the Dragon. And then Big Boss, Chinese Connection, Enter the Dragon, and then Game of Death.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way I would say about it too. As I said, I mean, like the core four, you generally can't go wrong. But like, I think that's the thing about Enter Dragon. Enter Dragon still is super solid and really good. Don't get me wrong. But I feel it's like one of those ones like the Chinese ones that he has are just like they just got that little bit of. It's like it's got that extra Hong Kongness that I feel like the Americans kind of dilute a little bit when it kind of gets filtered through them. You know, it takes a while for America to finally understand how a proper Hong Kong movie should be made.
Well, I think I like Way of the Dragon because it has like it really has like it's a couple of guys, the camera, they just probably figure out how to use it. Like, all right, yeah, we're actually going to go. It honestly feels like a movie that anybody could make. Just they happen to be in Italy and they just happen to have like two or three gifted prodigies of martial arts in that movie, like 3 or 4 gifted prodigies. It's more like that because really at the end of the day, it's not like the story's amazing. It's not like it's got stellar dialogue. The action's awesome. Maybe it takes a minute for him to actually fight because he's just kind of like hanging out there. He's always just he keeps on missing the action for the first like 20 minutes. And then he finally comes in. He's just like, all right, now he's here to fuck some people up.
Yeah, no, that is true because also it's Bruce Lee's first directorial, so it's almost like it's like a Bruce Lee indie picture where he goes out to Italy, being the first Hong Kong movie to ever be filmed outside of Hong Kong, as well. He gets that kind of record there, but he gets to do whatever he wants out there. He gets Chuck Norris in there, which is also just like such a amazing thing to kind of have in there too. Plus that like jumpstarts Chuck Norris's career because without Bruce Lee, who knows? Chuck Norris might not have ever done movies. Because that wasn't that wasn't on his mind when he was doing it. Chuck Norris was like, "Oh, you want me to be in a movie? Sure, I guess I can do that." Like that was sort of what it was. He's like, and then he does the joke. Okay, Bruce, I see what you're doing. You just want to say that you beat the karate master.
No, I want I beat the shit out of. No, I wanted to say, did Bruce Lee just like manhandle that fucking bear?
He just ripped his hair out. It's one of those ones. It's funny because like I've been going through just all these books and all the the crossers. A lot of them has just been that like they cross to that. There's another book that I read that was right in that same '60s thing because I can't remember like all these books. Also, they intertwine with not Marilyn Manson, Charles Manson. Because it's all they all, yeah, they're all like that 69 all happens like in everybody there because Steve McQueen was supposed to be over at literally Charles Manson's house, or not Charles Manson's house, Sharon Tate's house, but some side fling called him up and said, "Hey, Steve, I got nothing going on. You want to come bang?" "Oh, sure. Okay." So that got him out of that real quick. And then, even Bruce Lee, but something came up and that brought him out of that too. Or no, I don't think he was actually supposed to be there. Take that back. But whatever, And there was a third book I read too. And I was like, God, all these parts keep crossing over like that one section with Steve McQueen, Bruce Lee. And then there was a third one, but I totally drawing a blank on it. It's not like it was Chuck Norris or anything like that.
Not to be like an edgy boy of like, man, if all these like fucking movie stars were there, then shit would have gone down differently. But I mean, if you have both Steve McQueen and Bruce Lee who did grow up in street fights and was a trained martial artist, and Steve McQueen who saw war, I'm wondering if it would have gone. Of course, would probably not have gone down to the level of like fucking like Brad Pitt and like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But like, I imagine if it would have gone differently, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, you do kind of wonder because Steve McQueen almost would have been like that Brad Pitt part where he's like smoking the joint and just just getting there. You know what I mean? Because once again, Steve McQueen actually does fight and so on like that. It's not like that's unheard of for him.
We hope he would. Like the guy's like pointing, or it would suck if like they got it because they had one gun. They go in one or two guns. They go in there like, oh fuck, it's Bruce Lee, him first. You know, it'd suck if it was something kind of like that. But then like. But I'd like to think it would be something like Once Upon a Time in the Hollywood, like drop the gun, like drop the. He's like, put your hands behind your back, like, no. How about you do that? Flips the cigarette into his eye, burns it, runs over, like just breaks his hands behind his back, like just takes his thumbs, jumps over his own ass, like spins around like fucking Pops in Speed Racer, chucks him with the other one.
Yeah, exactly. Because that is true. It's like you just had like these major fucking action stars right there instead of just having, in a sense, you just had a couple of like excess of writers and slight directors, that.
It's fucked up. It just went up the whole time. Like, dude, like no, they like the same outcome. It's just like they were in the fucking like Steve McQueen and Bruce Lee were in the like downstairs lounge getting high watching Scooby Doo. They missed the whole thing. Like, hey, keep it down up there.
Yes. Oh God.
They're about to find out who's the fucking. About to find out who's the haunted fisherman. Shit, it was old man McGilligan. All right, I'll do your fucking movie. Okay.
Oh man, yeah. One of those things like that. Yeah, so that's what they're missing out. They're missing out on having Steve and Bruce there and so on like that. But I feel like those two guys, though, it would have been so interesting to see them even have a movie together, because I feel that would have been, because you always think of like the Clint Eastwood Bruce Lee movie, but I think the more realistic one probably would have been the Bruce Lee Steve McQueen movie.
Yeah. Like, what if like, I'm just imagining just kind of like the level of like, just like the roles Bruce Lee could have played like in other movies, and you have Star Wars coming out and then like Darth Vader's walking in, you still have the James Earl Jones voice, and then like all of a sudden like Darth Vader starts just like doing high kicks, like flipping people over, like, and you still hear them wow, you still hear all that, and then like you hired Bruce Lee, you put a fucking helmet on him, like no one moves like Bruce, man, no one can do it like how Bruce does.
I hate to sort of say, I feel like who knows if Bruce Lee was maybe bigger by that point. At the moment, I feel like if they like, what's Bruce Lee's role? Well, he's gonna be Boba Fett.
Oh, I can also see some.
You get three lines that are dubbed over, and
even at that time, even if he was still bigger by then, I could still actually maybe 77, not as much, but like I could still see even when he's bigger, like, can he keep the mask on? Why? Oh, you know why? Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, the goofy stuff like that. Yeah, there's just always, it's just so weird when like they just think like, oh, that's not gonna sell, like, and then it's like, it's just one of those ones that it's like you see like Enter the Dragon come out and go, yeah, that wasn't gonna sell. You sure about that?
Well, that's also another thing of like they've been saying that since Enter the Dragon, but it's like one of those things. If you look at a lot of movies, like for a while, they're like, well, like a movie with black superheroes won't sell, and like Black Panther breaks fucking world records in like fucking February, So like in a season, it's considered at the time it's considered to be dead for movies, and then like I think it came out in February. Maybe it was but
it was February.
February, yeah, Black History Month. So it came out in February at a time when it was considered to be a dead zone for like movies, and it broke fucking records. And then on top of that, it like, oh wow, look at that. We were trying to get the Inhumans off the ground for so fucking long, So it's like one of those things. Like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's not even just on like a diversity thing. I'm just surprised at some of the shit that like takes Hollywood to kind of get their head around. Of like, it's not hard, dude. You just got to actually give it a good budget and act like you give a shit. If you say, hey, look, if you make like fucking Catwoman with Halle Berry, and then throw it out there. Well, apparently they just don't like movies with black woman in it. Like, no, they just don't like pieces of shit fucking movies, dude. Just actually give it a budget and makes it feel like, I don't know, Catwoman. Yeah. So it's like not even on the diversity thing, but on the level of kind of like how it took so long. I mean, part of it was Nintendo's grip on stuff, but you hear about the number of times they were like trying to get like Metroid or Zelda or Mario off the ground again. And then there'd always be some of it was Nintendo, but some of it was also studio exec being kind of like, I don't know, or how they got a little like unsure about Halo. Like Halo was something they're kind of like, I don't know about this. Let's think about this when I make 2 Hitman movies.
Yeah, it's like, well, it's that weird one. It's like, as I think, because let's be honest, the Hitman movies don't cost a whole lot of money. As far as movies go, they're kind of like almost in a sense B movies that you could make for, in a sense, a somewhat lower budget and still make a good profit off of it because it's at a low budget. When the Halo one, it's like, they probably hopefully would have dumped a little bit more money on that. But the thing that bums me out the most about that is that Halo probably will never be nearly as big as it ever was. It's like, I felt like, and when they were going to make that movie, that would have made 100% sense. It would have been at the prime height of Halo. And, now Halo's always going to be around, but Halo's never going to be probably a top 10 game anymore. It's going to always be kind of a for the fans only type thing. I think that's where it sort of, lies.
I am curious to know about, because I heard nothing but bad things with the show, and I don't think I'd watch the whole thing. I'm curious to maybe watch the first episode of it, but I'm going to wait for that Knuckles show to come. That's the thing I'm waiting on Paramount Plus for, the Knuckles show, and maybe if the new Ninja Turtle show looks good, So. Yeah,
the Halo one is everybody who loves Halo. Like nobody told me anything. They're like, dude, it's like they said, like when there's action in it, yeah, that action's cool. For you probably sum it up for like 20 minutes out of 10 hours. Like.
Well, I hear the whole thing about how I've heard really nothing but bad things about it, even from people who don't really watch Halo or play Halo. And then at some point, like, I saw I didn't watch the show, but I totally got where it was coming from. And it was like just some cartoon. I guess there's a little girl in the show. It's just like, you, Master Chief, you were bad bands. You were bad bands. He's just like, no. He takes off the helmet. He's like, I am humans. And it just cuts them both getting like watery eyes. He says like, you're the chief now. Puts it on her head. And then I'm like, I did not see the show, but like I can totally fucking see. I can totally imagine what they're pulling from that.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I'm almost at that point nowadays. But there was a time where it felt like, oh, if there's something video game oriented, I'll have to go check it out. Or it was the same thing even like comic book oriented. But now it's almost like there's so much of it now that I feel like if the quality's not going to be there, you don't forget about it. I have the games. I don't need. You know what I mean? If you're going to make a legitimate Halo movie, I'm there. But until then, it's kind of like, It's at that point now where I don't have to see everything new.
I'm at that point where it's like there is stuff coming out that I still, there's still like stuff I'd like to see, and I'm not dying for every IP like adaptation, like before. Like, not like every IP adaptation, but like IP adaptations that I like that are coming out. Like I don't feel the need to like rush out to see every one of them like before. Like I don't know. Sonic, I'm still really excited for.
Oh yeah, wait, Sonic's different though.
Yeah, Sonic's different, but at the same time, like I don't really know what the Knuckles show. I'm actually hoping, because they've really been pushing Fang. They've been pushing Fang a lot, and he's going to be in the new Superstars game. And IDW even has like a Knuckles and Fang special coming out, like single issue special about the two of them coming out. Hopefully, it's not furry shit. I don't think it is, but that said though, I'm like, are they trying to amp people? Are they trying to do the DC method of like plopping characters that maybe we haven't seen in a while in multiple things at once? So at least people see them or kind of aware of them. So they pop up in the movie. They're not like, what the fuck's a Green Arrow? Or what the fuck's a Suicide Squad? So I feel like they're doing that with like Fang, and maybe he'll be popping up in the movie or the Knuckles show. Who knows? Sorry, I just totally grabbed the wheel there, and like we're going over here, but
what if Steve McQueen played Fang?
Oh, let's be honest. I like that character, but that's too big of a role. You know who would be really good? One who would be really good is Fang, and he's great in his own right. Steve Buscemi.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Steve Buscemi.
It's Fang. Yeah,
it's all voice work, so
No, yeah. Well, hey, at this point,
he's played a purple asshole in a cartoon before. It's familiar ground for him.
Yeah. Well, and as I said, that the Sonic 3 one, that they got to go hardcore as all can be after the Mario Brothers movie. That they're definitely not gonna, screw the pooch on that one.
I am kind of thinking, like, I'm wondering, I hope it doesn't become too bombarded, but I also feel like is like a fan of the characters, and like there's certain things because they kind of shot themselves in the foot with a little bit of the first one. I like the first movie, but since they only had 2 characters from the game in the first one, aside from the post-credit scene, they kind of shot themselves in the foot. So if you don't have like Amy in the next one, it's going to feel weird if you don't have Amy by the third one. It's also going to feel weird if you have Shadow, but you don't have Rouge. And then also at the same time, like, I feel like you also got to have, this is just a Sonic fan saying this, but you also got to have Metal Sonic in there, because I think if you plot Metal Sonic in another game, another movie, it's like, oh, it's another evil Sonic. Like, no, you got to, at least if Metal and Shadow are in the same movie, there could be some crossover theme of duality or something to that effect. You know what I mean? Like, it could be within the theme of the same movie. Then I'm thinking, there's all the fucking human characters they added just for these movies. So like, I'm almost imagining in my head of like what this thing could be. And then I'm like, don't fucking do that. Don't fucking do that. Don't fucking do that.
You always gotta be careful there. I mean, really what they should do with the human characters, just is you could have them in the very beginning, just for the people that do that, but you don't have to take them along for the adventure. You can be one of those ones where it's just be like, hey, Cyclops, we're going on an adventure. See you later, family.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
And then Tails, Knuckles, and Sonic go off, and then you start having your other characters and whatnot.
I like the idea, and I said this like after seeing Sonic 2, and we knew that Knuckles and Shadow was going to be in it. I like the idea of it pulling from Sonic Adventure 2, of course. Sonic on the run from the government, like it's like The Fugitive or whatever. But then, instead of it being actually Shadow going around doing this shit, it's actually like Metal Sonic. Like, it's a thing like there's just a blue blur, maybe even a hologram thing over him, and like maybe Shadow is like a government asset, track him down.
Yeah. No, I think that'd be a cool way to go about it for sure, because that makes sense for why you have Gun in there and all that stuff too.
And then that it's all up in the air if Jim Carrey's even coming back. So
yeah, well, I feel like if you kind of need Jim Carrey to have Metal Sonic, I guess, to sort of have him create, but you could almost be like that was his last creation, and now Metal Sonic's rogue, and Shadow's out there. Yeah, you just have this like 3-way battle between all these things going on. I don't know. There's so many things you can do. I just feel like after the Mario Brothers one, I feel like that definitely makes them probably have to raise their game even higher than Sonic 2.
The thing with the Mario Brothers one, I guess that leaves me with mixed emotions, because I really like that movie. But the thing is, it was so like it used every part of the buffalo, as far as like, because I honestly think the Sonic movie story wise is a better movie, not just because I like that character, but just because I feel like there is more emotion and more character development within it. Where the Mario Brothers movie, it was more of just kind of like very like, here's some lines to get this across. There's a couple of funny lines here and there, but basically we're just going here. We're going to spoon feed you every bit of information. We're just going to keep this shit rolling. And it is a good movie. It was fun. It was enjoyable. But a lot of it was just like the video game stuff. And I think that was the thing more sustaining me, just because like, not blatantly, I know that, like people like to make jokes about, but at the same time, what was impressive about it is the level of detail they paid attention to the overall world in Mario, where Sonic was like, it had the story down better, but it was more than what most video game movies did at the time. But Mario stepped it up though, as far as like the level of accuracy.
Yeah, no, that's definitely kind of how it is. Sees what's going to make the Sonic one, Sonic 3 have to go hardcore or not at all, almost, in a sense. Like if they don't go the distance, and I think as well as because in a sense, Sonic definitely stepped its way up from 1 to 2. Like that's already a huge step as far as how much more video game like it became. So if the third one just does a step just similar like that, it's going to be all there.
I don't know if they would do this, and this might be too much of like fan like casting or fan like do exactly what's in my head, but in an earlier version, of course, it's like apparently an earlier version in the scripts of the first game, of the first movie, when Robotnik's chasing him down, he was apparently chasing him through levels from the games. Even when he was thrown like through the ring, they'd be going through levels of the games. And then, of course, some studio head or whatever comes in like, people won't know what that is. Make it the Eiffel Tower, you know? So it's like one of those things like, it'd be cool if like, they kind of bring that concept back, or if it's something kind of like, oh yeah, we're jumping worlds to get away from Shadow or whatever, you know? Or I even like the idea of Shadow doesn't get redeemed by the end of this. Like Shadow gets redeemed in a movie or two down the line, you know?
Yeah, like work your way through, like keep him evil for a bit.
Yeah, you know? Like ride that out. Like make his turnaround becoming good. Like maybe they work together to bring down Metal, but then it's back to like, all right, see you back on the play yard, bitch, you know?
Yeah, one of those ones. Yeah, so they don't. It's not one of those ones where it doesn't get almost like, you know, it's not a bad thing, but like the Dragon Ball thing that after your big battle, the guy who is just your mortal enemy is now your best friend.
Yeah, I mean, basically, Sonic the Hedgehog is kind of like Dragon Ball, but with like Disney characters when you think about it. Like it is kind of like Mickey Mouse meets Dragon Ball Z at the end of the day. You think of that world to the level of even kind of like, oh, this guy who tried to kill me and my friends. Well, now we're just having chili dogs and kind of hanging out. We're cool now, you know? And Dragon Ball is way more, has way more of a one shit. That's what Fast and Furious is now too, though. So to be fair,
it's not, yeah, it's one of those. I think it's like that thing that they were supposed to be like, you know what, man, like that guy that you hate on the playground, like if you just beat the shit out of him once, he's gonna be your best friend for life. Be like, is that the message we're trying to get across? Well, I don't know. That's what it is. That's how Goku solved everything. If he just
Kakarot, give me your Capri Sun and Lunchables.
And then you just go up there, you just fucking whale him once in the nuts, punch him in the face, and then, you know, next thing you know, he'll be working on your team. He'll take care of your son when you're like, oh, gone.
to be fair, that did happen to me. There was a kid who was always starting shit with me, and then I'm not saying that you should do this, and it probably depends on the person, and it's not like he was a best long-lasting friend, but there was a guy who was always talking shit and being an asshole, and then it was middle school. Then I kicked his ass, and then he was cool with me after that. It's funny how that works. I mean, not saying you should do that all the time, but and it wasn't like I invited him over. Hey man, want to come over next weekend? You know, but like
kept one eye open the whole time. You know, still.
Yeah. Don't turn your back on this motherfucker.
Yeah, you might be looking for revenge.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those ones. We got all kinds of stuff kind of coming out. It's kind of weird because there's movies coming out this year, but there's not like tons more. It's the same thing with like games. I kind of feel like it's just like weird. Like there's some things, but there's not like crap ton of stuff like some of these previous years have been. I mean, maybe it's just like there's just been this. This is like that final fill of all like the, you know, movies that got kind of drug out farther than they needed to and released a little bit later.
Well, it's kind of weird. We're about to have a second dry spell of films because not just because of COVID. It's like, okay, COVID's over. Now all the movies that were held up are now finally coming out. Like now we got a writer strike and an actor strike. So now it's going to be a little longer on that. So now it's just kind of like waiting this out. So, but it is what it is, you know. It gives me time to read more, you know. So
yeah, I know. I mean, it's not a big. I mean, sometimes
it's not the end of the world for us.
Strikes. It's like, oh, because now you're not making, you know, Ferrari money. You have to go down to BMW money. Oh Jesus.
No, it's not even that. No, they're really getting fucked over. They really are. They're getting like paid less than like fast food employees in some cases. So like the person who wrote The Bear and who got like a Emmy couldn't even afford like an Uber ride over to pick up the award. So they are getting fucked over.
I always still have a hard time sort of believing that a little bit. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that they might not be getting paid less, but sometimes some people like they bitch about not getting paid, like, and then you hear what they're getting paid and you're like, well, yeah, maybe you wished you had $3 million and you only got $1 million, but you still have $1 million. Like,
well, it's not even that for like, it's more of like, like all the Brad Pitts and the Aaron Sorkins, like they're not their representative. They're talking about like actors who can't even get like a leg up in, and there's even actors that like, if you want to sign on with the studio and you're signing on to be a background person, they want to pay you for like one day, and then they want to scan you and then just use your face in other movies. And you can't go over to the studio and work for them because we own your likeness. Like that kind of shit. And that's not like. And then there are also things of like just they had a long list of things that the studio was not even hearing them out on, and it's kind of like a lot of like one of the main things they would get by on was residuals, and due to some kind of like shady Hollywood dealing, residuals don't work the way for streaming, even though that is way more the way it works. And so it's kind of like so it's kind of like if it was like Brad Pitt and Will Smith.
Well, yeah, I'm not talking about big guys. I am talking about smaller people, but like smaller people still sometimes can make quite a bit of money, like because a lot of times people that make those jobs, it's like when people bitch like they're like, oh, I'm an animator and I only make $70,000 a year, and you're almost like, well, go fuck yourself then.
Well, it also depends on like where are you living, and then where are you required to live, where are you like what does the industry require you to be, and what is inflation, all that kind of shit. So you kind of hear what everyone is making, because everything I looked at it's the studios just being a bunch of fucking greedy pricks, really. That's really what it comes down to.
That's always kind of how it's going to be with business, is you're fighting those kind of two-way battles no matter what. But then there's the poor independent people that always get screwed over because they're not part of like the unions, so then they can't get hired for certain jobs because they're indie and they're in that weird stuck limbo kind of place. It's one of those messed up situations multiple ways.
My thing with it, like I think that I think it depends on the actor and it depends on their contract. I think some people can still do non-union work. It just depends on what it is exactly. I don't remember the details, and I think it's almost case by case, but I think there's something to the effect of like you can agree not to take union wages for this project so you can do like the smaller film. Like there's some studios that, like I think A24 is one of the studios that's not affected by the strike as much because they meet a lot of the requirements, and a lot of their stuff is smaller budget anyway. It's more of the Disneys, the Paramounts, all that kind of stuff.
Well, it's all the corporate, because at least indie. See, that's the upside, is if like corporate gets shut down, like the indies can actually thrive a lot better, I think, in that kind of like environment.
Yeah, silver lining to that. So hopefully, while we're waiting for like all the big blockbuster shit to get back to going, which majority of it I'm like, I can wait. There's a couple that I'm like, oh, I really want to see that, but majority of it I can wait. Hopefully more indie stuff comes out, because I'll be honest, as much as I love like when people watching the video version of this, you could see back in the room, you could tell the shit I'm into, but at the same time, I wouldn't mind just watching like more of like film again. Like it doesn't always need to have a superhero or an IP attached to it. It'd be nice to see some kind of more like just kind of classic style films,
Yeah, it's just you don't get a whole lot of just like, in a sense, I'm just gonna say I'm like the kind of like the mixed match kind of like, sounds weird, but like a Kevin Smith or a Woody Allen style movie where it's just like, here's just some people, it's in a real location, no CG, it's kind of a talkie picture, you just don't get a whole lot of those anymore.
Yeah, I mean, even like most of the movies I'm excited for seeing this year. I mean, I'm looking at my list of movies I wanted. Yeah, there's like a Marvel movie on there, and there's some genre stuff on there, but there's also like, oh, I want to see this Julia, like what's Elaine's name?
Travis?
Yeah. There's a movie with her, and I think the guy from X-Files, forgot his name too.
Mulder.
What?
Well, I said Mulder, but that's not his real name.
Whatever his name is. I think it's him. David Duchovny, is that his name?
Yeah, I think that's something like that.
I think it's the two of them. basically just a marriage film about like one of them overheard talking shit on the other, and now it's just like this couple having an argument. And I'm like, I kind of want to see that. You know? Like, it's not like, it's just one of those things. Like, I like those two actors. It looks kind of funny. It has kind of like, it might be, if it's not a Noah Baumbach movie, it has a Noah Baumbach kind of feel to it. So I'm like, I want to see this. You know, it's just like this tense dramatic comedy. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those ones. Yeah, it's that thing that I think about too, because I look at my list of sort of what I've had so far this year, and it's like, it feels like there's just a lot less anymore, just because there's not very many cinema movies as much too. I mean, since I go to the theaters, you know, at least 2 or 3 times a month, but it's kind of funny that like, yeah, you aren't getting a lot of those like, I guess you would sort of say B kind of, I say B movies, not like a B movie of like the old way, but it's not like a AAA, you know, movie. You just don't get as many of those ones anymore. Just kind of like, hey, here's a smaller movie. Now, probably, yeah, they probably play somewhere like on a Hulu or something like that. But that pretty much just feels like, I don't know, like it's just not the same way. It's like if I can't see it in cinema, it doesn't have that same experience, and then it almost gets lost out into the streaming zone, which is always kind of a sad one. I mean, it probably works for the majority of people, but I feel like if anybody really likes the cinema experience, it's like, yeah, there's something lost there.
Well, I'm looking at a list of movies right here that, you know, because usually as we lead up to our top 10 of the year, I usually have to keep a list just so I know. And majority of the stuff I've seen is like big budget shit, because that's just kind of mostly what goes to theaters and streaming. Yeah. It's so easy to have stuff fall between the cracks and kind of like have it get by you. And there's movies like, a movie I really want to see is like going back, not based on, well, I guess based on a true story, as they say, but like movie I'm looking forward to the most this year is probably Killers of the Flower Moon, which is the new Martin Scorsese picture, and that comes out. That comes out like that's about like I think it's about like, I don't remember who's killing who. Might be a revenge story, but I think it's like oil barons going and killing Native Americans and then fighting back. I think that's kind of what it's about. So that sounds like a pretty good movie.
Yeah, I know. I just saw the trailer for that one. I think it maybe Mission Impossible it was, or maybe it was Oppenheimer. But I
wanted to see Oppenheimer, and that's another example, like another like big 3-hour movie that's not based on any like popular IP or franchise, just people talking, and it did good, you know?
Yeah, it was decent. You know, I was expecting some, for some reason, Wes said something, Wes of VHS. He said that like, he's like, oh man, people were walking out of that film because there was some weird shit that happens in there. Like almost like, because we watched that Threads movie, the English nuclear bomb movie, where it's like, let's take this super serious. And like, if a nuclear bomb was dropped on England, you know, like what would be the effects of all this? And, you know, seeing the people and all like the problems they would go through. And I mean, like really intense stuff, you know, it's like there's no happiness to it whatsoever. It's just watching
people and all that kind of shit.
Yeah. And just people just like melting away and catching on fire and just, you know, running out of food and all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, oh, okay. For some reason, I was like, I was in that movie kind of expecting that. And I was like, what did people walk out on? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was trying to think that the whole time. I'm like, other than like the movies being 3 hours long and maybe they had to pee. Like,
he had a tie to communists. Like, I'm not sitting through this bullshit.
Fucking like, yeah, like one of those ones where it's like, yeah, like because that's like the last third of the movie is like the Red Scare part of it all. Be like, whoa, you had some commie friends now, and you know, you're doing the most American thing known to mankind. So what are you doing talking to them? You know, and so the movie was decent. Like I enjoyed it. I don't think it'd make my top 10. I think it's more of a cool movie and they're like, you know, good and worth watching. You know, but it's not. I feel someone's like, boy, I can't wait to throw Oppenheimer on a couple more times.
I guess I want to see that because when I saw like Dunkirk, I initially thought like the same thing. I thought the same thing as you, kind of like, you know what? Yeah, it was a good movie. It was well made, but it wasn't like a movie I could put on all the time. It's still not a movie I could probably put on all the time. But I was doing on Marley's show. It's now called Marley Loves Film. At the time, it was The Water Cooler. We were covering Christopher Nolan films, and I was rewatching Dunkirk for that. And that was also like one of those things like, this movie is way better than I remember it being. Don't get me wrong. It's not a movie I could just throw on any time, but this movie is so much better than I remember it being. So I'm kind of want to see Oppenheimer, kind of like, because it seems like it's not an action movie, but it seems like it's something kind of in a similar type of wheelhouse, I guess, just kind of that more biopic, kind of hard reality kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, it made Dunkirk. I think one of the best things that made that movie, though, is they did that one thing. They'd be like, you know how every war movie has like this hour beginning where we're like on the mainland and there's the stupid family and there's all this kind of stuff? Cut that shit out and just start from the 2/3 part of the movie. Like, that's what I thought was the most intelligent thing that Dunkirk did. Be like, how's the movie start off? There's just two dudes running on the beach. You know what I mean? Like, carrying something. What are they carrying? Who knows? Doesn't matter. Like that's what it is. You're like thrown into that movie.
Was that dude just get done taking a shit, or did he just feel that uniform? No time to answer. Just keep moving, or he gets shot up by Nazis. Don't even see him.
I think that was my favorite part, is like, because like every war movie practically, it always has that long intro, because if you don't have the family aspect of why they go out there, it's like they're like, you don't need the family aspect. You know what I mean? It's fine for certain things. You know what I mean? Sometimes we just want to see a war movie.
Yeah, you don't need to Pearl Harbor everything. Yeah,
exactly. Because Pearl Harbor, put the second disc in, or the second VHS, I guess. Movie. Well, no, technically that movie I think split on the DVD.
It's a 2-discer.
Yeah, it's split that way too. But yeah, no. As I say, Oppenheimer definitely is worth going to see, and I'd see it in theaters for sure. I enjoyed it. As I said, I was just expecting something weird. Like I was expecting it to go like what was the Interstellar? Like Interstellar gets all weird like for like the last like very 2001. I was expecting something like that, because and it's like no, it's very normal. It's very grounded. There's nothing. There's some funny parts in it, but there's not like there's not like anything just like violent or like ridiculous in that film. It's very straightforward.
Interstellar, I feel, was overrated. I liked it, but that was one of those things where both that and Tenet, like I respect both those movies, but I feel like they're both a little kind of overrated in their own kind of way. Like Tenet was a little bit more needlessly like over the top, or a little bit more needlessly overly complicated than it needed to be. And then, but the action was cool, and all the actors in it were great. But then,
well, that's almost even just like, even though I still enjoy this movie, his other one with Leo and Inception. Like, it's a good movie, but that movie, there was like some people like, it's so amazing. And it's just like, dude, have you not seen Lawnmower Man or like Matrix and shit before? Like. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess you haven't.
Don't get me wrong, I really like Inception. That movie, I get why people really like it, and I like it. But the thing is, like, dude, I was so confused. I'm like, it's very easy. It's they go inside the brain. He's dreaming. Then he dreams within a dream. That's another layer. And the more you go, shit gets more crazy. Shit gets more fucked up, and the stakes become higher. That's all you really need to know. But how do they dream within the dream? Like doesn't fucking matter, dude.
Stop asking so many stupid questions. Yeah,
it's like that kind of shit. Like I've seen Nightmare on Elm Street. I've seen like The Matrix. It's not like I don't know. It's
I've seen The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest.
Yeah, I've seen Tron. Shit.
Yeah, I just felt like it's one of those ones. Like sometimes some people, it's like, but then again, I guess you gotta stop and go, wait a second. The average person doesn't watch as many movies as you do.
The only thing with that movie, like I'm not expecting like, I guess the one thing is I think they said something in that movie to keep things more manageable. Like I think like the box or whatever they have keeps things more manageable for the dream or something. Mm-hmm. And the only thing is, I guess it makes sense if you want to like keep like, like hit quickly. The only way to get away from like the Scarecrow's like mind police is to ride these unicorns quickly, like there's only, I guess you got to put a limit on it to make it like still it's kind of cool. But I wish they did things not like more fantasy oriented, but the locations, it was always just kind of like we're in like the 5th level out of GoldenEye, or we're in like or we're like in like just a warehouse, or it's raining or something like that. I wish it would be something more of like crazy structures in a building that doesn't make sense, or like weird crazy architecture that's not of this world, but you don't have like, oh no, we got to take out the Cyclops now, nothing like that.
Well, because I mean, you kind of could, because it is dreams, and dreams aren't really logical. So like they should be kind of like that. It could still be like, okay, we're in a city, but for some reason things just aren't normal in a sense.
That's what I mean, because I understand he wants to keep it more mature. So the idea of like keeping it kind of grounded, I appreciate. I just wish it went another like step up for the dream shit. Like, you know, the part when like the city folds in on itself, they use like in every ad.
Mm-hmm.
Like if the city was like that and they had to figure that out for part of the dream, like that was the whole dream. It wasn't just a part for an effect. Like that was
that was
dream, and they had
like
to get across like that kind of shit. Or if like this or just weird structure, like, you know, or like just to mix up more of the just it wasn't exactly something that we see every day. I don't, like I said, I don't need monsters or creatures, even though those could be there too. I would just like to see more of a variety of weird things.
Well, even small things, you could just change the location. Like one of the dream levels could be literally on like a jungle island. You know, you don't have to go. You don't have to go super like ridiculous. You just change it. Just change the level in a sense.
I mean, if his wife is going to turn into a train and chase him at some point, then I guess we what's stopping him from doing other weird shit, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no. I mean, like, I'm always interested in a Christopher Nolan movie. If he has something coming out, I'm like, I'm there. I'm definitely not gonna not go.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, as I said, Oppenheimer, it was still interesting. It was still fun. It's one of those ones. It's a little on the long side. I mean, that's to be expected for a Christopher Nolan movie. But the weird thing is like, I like every movie this year, excluding the Mario Brothers movie and excluding Sisu, that was the only other one that I could think of.
I wanted to see that one.
Like 2 hours. Well, this poor Sisu just got like, it got literally that same treatment that not Ong Bak, but the Protector got, where it's like they showed the trailers for it and then they're like, fuck, we're not showing that in theaters. And it's just like, it didn't go anywhere. I literally had to wait for it to come out on Blu-ray, and then I just was like, when I saw it there, I was like, okay, I'm buying it day one.
You watched it yet?
It's good. It's good.
Okay.
It's definitely probably the higher up one of this year, I would say, movie wise.
Yeah, when's this thing coming out to streaming? Shit.
I don't know. I just bought it because it's worth owning. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no, I definitely wanted to see that. That looked like one of the best movies of the year. Like, even though I like John Wick, I'm almost kind of liking all these movies inspired by John Wick more as they come out.
Well, yeah,
you know?
like I like it. Sounds weird if like it's most of the time if it says like by the producer, somebody, you're like, yeah. But that's one of the few ones if it says by the producer John Wick, you're like, it's like that Nobody movie, super good. You know what I mean? And that's the Sisu one is really good there too. But yeah, other than that, though, it's like all these movies nowadays are all like 3 hours long. You know, it's just like, or close to it, like 2 hours and 45 minutes to 3 hours. And I feel like there's a time and a place for that. You know, don't get me wrong. There's some movies that I don't mind them being 4.5 hours long, but a lot of movies, I feel like now it's like that's become like the average time length is that you're supposed to make. You know, it used to be 2 hours was the normal time length, and all of a sudden like 3 hours is like the thing, and it's just like I feel most of these movies, it's always like even if they're good, you're like, it probably could have been about 20 minutes shorter.
I think that, you know, if you have like a big Marvel movie, and this is like the third of like this particular Marvel franchise, or like an Endgame, I get like 2.5 hours or 3 hours. That makes sense. Like for like one that big. But it's like when the go-to is always 2.5 hours, like let's just wrap this shit up. Does this really need to be 2.5 hours? I mean, I think Guardians 3 may have been 2.5 or 2 and 10, but that didn't drag, and that's like the third of a franchise. So I get it. And plus with other appearances they've made. But it's like I do feel like anytime I see, because there's been times where the runtime, and before it wouldn't stop me, but now it's a little bit more of a thing, like of me going across, like getting on my bike, riding over to a train, getting over to walking through a bunch of people where I don't speak the same language to go see this movie, you know, and then
then you got the trailers, then you start adding it up, and 3 hours now turns into 5 hours.
Yeah, like luckily, I mean, it doesn't come out. I don't think it comes out here next week. If it does, we should totally do it. But for me, the Ninja Turtles movie, the new one, comes out like at the end of August where I'm at. So, and then from what I hear, that's only an hour and 30. I'm like, oh my God, thank you.
Yeah, it's like one of those ones that's just like, I hate to sort of say it, but like I said, there's a time and a place for a long movie, but so many of these films nowadays, it's like even the new Mission Impossible, still good, but it didn't need to be 2 hours and 45 minutes. Like, I don't even think any of the other Mission Impossibles like go any higher than maybe 2 hours and 20 minutes or something like that. If that even, like they mostly always stuck around that 2 hour mark. Which 2 hours that's a great time frame. That's a great time frame. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Like that's like I'm surprised. Like the new one. Like how long was the new? I didn't see the new one yet because
It's
once
good.
again that's like 3 hours. It's like 3 hours.
It's literally like it's I think it was 2 hours and 40 or 45, and then to top it off, it's a two-parter. So it has that same Spider-Man
part one.
that one had too. That like it's like okay, if that was one singular movie, it's one thing, but like the fact that like it's a two-parter and it's 2 hours and 45 minutes, you're like Jesus, come on.
I don't see Mission Impossible movies in theaters anymore because A, I'm not on the same continent as you. B, I also don't like. I say that as a joke because it was never my idea to see those movies. It was just be one of those things I kind of almost even like when I moved out of like Sonora. My roommate would be like, "Dude, you want to go see Mission Impossible?" I mean, I got nothing going on. If you do, sure, yeah, that was fun, cool. Now I'm like, I keep this one. The new ones are like 2.5 hours plus. I'm like, you got to be shitting me. What can they be fucking doing that makes this shit 2.5 hours plus by now? It's all fucking CG cars. Come the fuck on.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm wrong. Like I still like Mission Impossible a lot because it's I always call it's American 007, you know. And as much as I like 007, I don't mind having some other 007 in my life.
Feels like G.I. Joe.
I don't know. I still always feel like it's in that kind of Bond section. Like it's just you know,
kind of gives me like a Saturday morning cartoon vibe. I don't mean that in a bad way. I could just totally see this like feeling like if you never didn't know anything about it and just walked in, like is this based on a comic book or a cartoon or something?
Well, because he does have the team. The team aspect definitely gives it that. I mean, it's based on a TV show from the 60s, so that probably has that same comic book feel to it anyways, without...
Fast and the Furious?
Oh, no, I'm talking about Mission Impossible.
Oh, Mission Impossible, yeah.
I was like, when you're like, reminds me more of G.I. Joe. I'm like, Mission Impossible does?
Oh no, I meant G. Oh no, I meant G. I meant Fast.
Yeah, I was kind of going like, oh okay, yeah, you know. I was like, well, let's see where Ryan's going.
Let me see how I can stretch this out because that thing you don't want to push back, but at the same time, no, you're wrong. Like, I didn't think of it that way, but okay.
Yeah, no, okay,
right, no.
Fast and the Furious, yeah, and then there's another example. That movie was like 3 hours long too, and then it turns out that that's a two-parter too. It's like I didn't even know that was a two-parter till like Vin Diesel told me that at the very end of the movie it was a two-parter, and you're like, I thought I was in for the final one, and I hate to say it, these movies are all good. They're all fine and dandy, but I think it got a little long-winded here. You know, you can make a movie or so after Paul Walker dies, but when your star character's been dead for like 4 movies, like it's a little stretch.
Well, it's also like by now. Well, it is also kind of like if we bring it to Pirates of the Caribbean kind of style thinking of it, it's like because Paul Walker was the main character of the first one, just like Orlando Bloom was the main character of the first Pirates, and then as it went on, it became Johnny Depp. But then it's kind of like they had an identity crisis. Like, okay, Paul Walker's back in the second one. Like, well, where's Vin Diesel? Where's Vin? Well, Vin said he didn't want to come back. Well, I don't give a shit if Vin's not here. I don't give a shit. Well, Vin makes a cameo in the third. Like, Vin's back! And then it's just like, oh shit, this just, okay, yeah, let's keep doing these. And then like, oh my God, it's fucking Vin! You know, and then like, you know, now he slowly just kind of like, Paul, get back there, you know, until, you know, it happened. And then now Dom is the main character of the series, which I get. I think he's actually probably more interesting than like the Paul Walker character, but at the exact same time, I'm all like, I get it. You're brooding. You're angry. You never smile. It's family. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's one of those ones I said, still good, still solid, but it's just, it's kind of at that point where it's just like, you know, okay. Especially when it's the part 2 thing too. I'm just not a big fan of those part 1 and part 2 ones, unless you're like Lord of the Rings, like, and it was designed that way or something like that. It's like, it's just one of those ones. It's like these things could all be wrapped up in one movie.
I heard like the thing is, part 2, but apparently even though it's part 2, it's technically 3 parts because I guess between part 1 and part 2, they're doing a who knows, may fall through, especially with all the strike stuff happening. But what's it called? You're
gonna have some in between spin-off.
Might be getting it. What?
Oh, The Rock was in the post credits or even like the end of the movie.
He might be having a spin-off film that goes between 1 and 2 that bridges them together. So they're really trying to like MCU this shit.
This is gonna be just like how like Fast and Furious 3 is like the futuristic movie.
Yeah. Look, I'll say this: Hobbs and Shaw was stupid as fuck, but at least it was,
fun as fuck too. Yeah,
What? It was
it's
stupid
fun.
as fuck, but it was fun. I mean, it knew how fucking dumb it was, and at the same time, it was a fun movie, and it was self-contained, so that's at least one thing it had going for it. They made references to other movies, but this one in the trailer, like, remember that one bad guy from the fifth one? No, that was like 15 years ago, dude. Well, just in case you forgot, that's his son, and he wants revenge. Like, all right, cool, all right, sure.
Yeah, and then you literally have what's his name, Aquaman, who's pretty much looks like he's playing Danny McBride in it.
He's playing Danny McBride.
That's what it looked like when I first saw that trailer for it. I'm like, is that fucking Danny McBride? Because it's like, oh no, but it's like it literally looks like Jason Momoa is literally doing the Danny McBride like acting. That's 100% what it feels like. It's like that. That's who it should have been. It should have just been Danny McBride. I feel like Danny McBride would have just owned that scene, because even Jason Momoa's kind of got like the beer gut going and everything like that. Looks like he's like Eastbound and Down, where like he says he's really fit and like in shape, but he's like really not. Almost that.
Dude, I want a movie where like Danny McBride is. I mean, there's been movies where he has been the bad guy, but now I want like the end of the world, like Avengers or Fast and the Furious level movie where like the bad guy is more or less Kenny Powers and he's played by fucking Danny McBride, or like open up on him like the way you open up on him like in like The World's End. He's just like, they're just playing like Cypress Hill. He's like pissing like in slow motion, like on a toilet seat or whatever, and just comes out dancing.
Oh, totally. No, I think
just do that with him and fucking Fast and Furious. Like, oh yeah, this is the guy.
Plus, you just could use more Danny McBride in life, anyways.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'd like to see that. He probably likes playing more serious roles every so often because he's tried that. He's done a few of those. But like he was in.
Well, he wrote the sixth Alien movie.
He wrote the one coming out soon?
No, it came out a couple years ago.
Wait, he wrote Alien
Covenant? Yeah, he's one of the writers on it. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's too bad. Oh, well,
well, that movie's amazing.
The one where it's like a bridge between
Prometheus 2? Yeah, pretty much.
I thought it was all right. I don't know. I guess my thing is just because they did too much of the because the thing about Alien is Alien and Aliens. Uh-huh. It's a science fiction horror movie where everyone is smart, and if anyone dies, it feels like they either pay immediately for it or there is like, well, how are they supposed to know that? It's understandable how the first alien dies. Who's expecting a fucking like monster thing to come dropping down? The guy's just sitting there like in the rain, like, where the fuck's the cat? No one's expecting like a fucking giant black bug to come down and get you. So I get that. But the Alien like Covenant, it's just like, hey man, I'm an android. I've been here for a long time. I've just been doing some Jeffrey Dahmer style experiments with this shit. You want to come check it out? That thing just ate this lady. The lady knew there was aliens and shit around here, but she decided to go like wash up by herself, even though she knew all this shit was around. And she's dead now. I know. I watched it. You watched it? Yeah, I watched it. That's fucked up. It might be. Depends on perspective, philosophy and shit. Okay. Hey, follow me. Where? Into this dark cave. Cool. And then you go in like, what are these? Why don't you look? Just look. Do I have to? Well, you don't have to, but I know you want to. So just fucking look. And then like, so
I got a Reese's Pieces for you if you do.
Yeah, like, oh fuck, And then you get like, like every fucking death in that movie is like so avoidable and so fucking stupid most of the time. Like majority of them. Mm-hmm. And then there's the one where it's like, there's like, I only saw it once, saw in theaters, and then there's like the one guy who's the first to get bugged, and the alien comes out of his back instead of his chest, which is cool and all. But then it's like I'm sorry, like you gotta let me. Like they quarantine the lady who's working on him, and they quarantine her off. She's like, I'm sorry, I can't let you out, and she's all screaming like, you gotta let me out. He's like, I'm sorry, and then the thing busts out and then starts ripping her face off and eating her or whatever. And that's where she's like, let me get the door. It's like, and the thing runs out and fucking kills everyone else. So it's like, there's just so much like, what the fuck, you know? But
it does have some goofy stuff in it, but I still like the living daylights out of that one. I don't know. I love Prometheus. I think that's the thing, is because that one's pretty much just like Prometheus too. And I'm not saying those movies are perfect movies, but like I just love them for the way they are. Like I'm that weird person. I think I like Prometheus more than I like all the Aliens.
Really, I'll even like Aliens 1 and 2.
Yeah. Aliens would be the only one that might get close to, I don't know, because Aliens is pretty darn good, but like I really like Prometheus, and in weird ways. It's like that movie. It's like, it's not because it's got better action or it's not any of that. It's just that movie. I don't know. I think it's also just for how funny like Prometheus is too. Like it's just got stuff in it that's just so strange and weird choices, but I almost feel it makes the movie experience better.
Aliens is one of my favorite like science fiction movies of all time, so that's why I think I hold that one in such high regard. But like Prometheus does, even though like there is some like reasonable complaints to have that movie just in logic, there is just some things that are just funny about it, like choices that are made, like the idea that they spend how many years going to this fucking planet and they get there and it's just like, man, we checked one cave, there's no fucking people here, this fucking sucks, let's go. Like, dude, we've been here for like 3 hours. we hardly looked. Like, this is fucking stupid, dude. What the fuck are we even doing here? Like, okay, you know. And then there's the one guy. There's of course I'm a geologist, and as if he says as if there should be a guitar riff right behind him, you know.
And then he's just like the biggest bitch of the movie. Like, I don't know. I think that's the thing, is there's all those goofy things in there, but I think the goofy stuff, it's like it technically doesn't make the movie better, but the experience of watching it is just so like high up because of that interesting stuff in there.
No, yeah, I get you. It's been a while since I've seen that one, but I might need to watch Alien Covenant again because I haven't seen that since the theaters. But yeah,
I have it on Blu-ray, but I haven't watched it since the theaters either. But I did like it though. As I said, I think I'm
going to watch it when I come by and visit on Thanksgiving. So.
Yeah, we'll have an Alien marathon. I have this fat Blu-ray set that I actually haven't watched yet that I bought for like $5 a long time ago too. I had them on DVD, but let's have them on Blu-ray as well too.
Can you imagine a movie franchise less appetizing to have for like Thanksgiving? Like, yeah, I get the 007 Thanksgiving marathon, but like Alien, you know.
I guess it's better than like having like Night of the Living Dead marathon or.
I guess so. I'm just imagining just like chest bursting. People talk like, you know. Whenever someone's having dinner in an Alien movie, somebody's like, "Oh no!" They fall over on the table. Like, "Oh shit, here we go again."
Well, that's true. Because when you're watching zombies, you're like, "Man, everybody's eating. I feel like eating too."
Yeah.
Boy, this movie's making me hungry. Turn and look at your friend.
There's a turkey right there. Oh, there is. Good call.
Good. You know, if there wasn't there, I don't know.
Shit could be going different, you know. Wouldn't we have as much to be grateful for? That's all I'm saying.
Exactly, but
weird thing to bring up, but yeah.
But yeah, well, more movies to be had in due time for sure. But that's probably a good place to wrap it up with. We don't want to be like all those movies coming out anymore and just go way too longer than we need to. You know what I mean?
I think the sweet spot is an hour and a half, but at the same time,
we passed that.
Yeah.
So we're gonna podcast. We're gonna do the Oppenheimer of podcasting and go a little bit extra. You know, a little bit more than you really probably wanted, but it's not the worst thing, I guess. But till then, go to oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, comic books like Pizza Boyz, all our old animations and videos and art and all that other fun jazz we got on there. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
And we'll see you some other time.
Later, folks.